Hey guys, Miss Fearon here. Welcome to Unit 3, Notes 3. We're going to go ahead and look at multiplying monomials now. So when I go ahead and talk about a monomial is a number, a variable, or a product of a number and one or more variable. So remember, product means that I am just multiplying. So if I take 3xy, that's a monomial. I'm multiplying 3 times x times y. So monomials that are just real numbers are called constants. So if I have something that says 9 or plus 9, that 9 is my constant. It doesn't have a variable with it at all. It's just a number. So here are a couple rules that we're going to look at here. Product of powers. If you're multiplying things together, so another example you could see is like x squared times x to the fourth. When you're multiplying, you're going to add those exponents. So in my x example here, I would have x to the 4 plus 2 is going to give me 6. So the example I have over here, a to the 6 times a to the third. I'm going to get a to the 6 plus 3, which is going to give me a to the 9. The next exponent rule that we're going to look at is power of a power. What I want you to do is I want you to write it out and then use our product of the power. So we're going to make it look like product of the power so that we can add the exponents. So when you have something squared like this, it means that you have 2 of whatever's in the parentheses. So we can go ahead and write 6a to the 6th times 6a to the 6th. Now it just turns into a product of a powers. I can multiply the big numbers. So I'm going to multiply the coefficients. So 6 times 6 gives me 36. And then I can add the powers. 6 plus 6 gives me a to the 12th. Last rule that you gotta be really knowledgeable about is the zero power. Anytime you have anything to the 0 power, it always equals 1. So a lot of the time I get the question, when do I know I'm done? Well, there's some things that you have to make sure won't happen. First things first, you see each base appearing exactly once. So you have only one x written down or only one y written down. They can have powers attached to them, but you can only have it written down once. There are no powers of a power, so I cannot have something that looks like this. We know how to simplify that. We have to write it out 4 times and then multiply, so add the powers. And then all fractions are in simplest form. So if you have something like 3 over 6, we know how to reduce that down. So let's go ahead and look at the first example here. I have 4x times x squared times y to the third. So you have to start keeping in mind that your 4 and your first x are 2 separate things. It's not 4x. It's 4 times x squared times x to the third. So this x here has an imaginary 1 next to it, or as its power. So I just have, as a coefficient, I just have 4. So the 4 is going to stay. X to the first times x squared. Well, when I multiply, I'm going to add. So I'm going to x to the 1 plus 2. And then I have y to the third. So if I simplify this, I get 4x to the third, y to the third. And I'm done with that one. Each variable only appears once. There's no fractions. I'm good to go. Number 2. I have 3 times x squared times y times 2 times x to the 4th times y to the 8th. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to multiply the coefficients. So 3 times 2 is going to give me 6. And then I have x squared times x to the 4th. Remember, when I multiply, I'm going to add those powers. So I'm going to get x to the 2 plus 4. And the same things with the y. Remember, this y has an imaginary 1. So I'm going to get y to the 1 plus 8. So if I simplify that, I get 6x to the 6th, y to the 9th. Each variable is written only once. I have no power to powers, and I have no fractions. So I can look at number 3 here. I have 4x, y, z to the third, all to the 0 power. Remember, anything to the 0 power cancels out, and it's just 1. Number 4, I have 6 times x to the third times y times x, y to the 4th, all to the 0 power. So this is the only thing that's actually to the 0 power, so this is going to cancel out, and that's going to be a 1. So I'm doing 6x to the third y times 1. This is basically just going to be 6 x to the third y. So let's go ahead and look at number 5 now. I have 4xy squared all squared. So we want to get rid of this squared on the outside. When you have something outside of parentheses like that, that number, that power, tells me how many of those parentheses I have. So I have 2 4xy squareds that I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to write out. So when I write that out, it now turns into a product of a power. So I'm just going to multiply the big numbers. 4 times 4, 16. I have x to the 1 times x to the 1. Remember, we add that, so I get x squared. And then y squared times y squared, we're going to add, so I get y to the 4th. Each variable only appears once. I have no power to powers, and I have no fractions. Number 6, I have 2xy all to the 4th power. So this 4 tells me I have 4 of those parentheses. So I have 2xy times 2xy times 2xy. I'm going to write one more down here, times 2xy. So now it just turns into a multiplication. So I'm going to multiply the coefficients. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16. I have x times x times x times x, so I get x to the 4th. And the same thing, y times y times y times y gives me y to the 4th. So I want you to take a second here. I want you to pause the video, and I want you to try number 7 and number 8 on your own using the product of power property. Here's what I got for number 7 and 8. If you got anything different, please pause the video and come talk to me before moving on with the rest of the video. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at number 9 here. This is kind of a hefty problem, but we can do this. So I'm doing 3xy to the 4th times negative 2y squared all to the 3rd power. So I'm going to go ahead, this 3xy to the 4th is just going to hang out front. We're not going to touch that for a little bit because that is not to the power of anything. So I don't need to worry about writing it out multiple times. I only have it once. I'm going to keep it just once. So we're going to work inside out. So we're going to do this negative 2y squared. So I'm going to write that out twice because that squared tells me I have it 2 times. And then I still have that little 3 out front. So we're going to simplify in here first. So I'm going to get 3xy to the 4th. Now I'm going to have negative 2 times negative 2 is going to give me 4. Y times y gives me y squared. And now I still have that to the 3rd. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to write that out 3 times now. So I have 3xy to the 4th times 4y squared times 4y squared times 4y squared. So now we're going to multiply our numbers. So I'm going to do 3 times 4 times 4 times 4. I should get 192. Now I have just this x in the front. And then I have y to the 4th times y squared times y squared times y squared. So remember, when you multiply, you add the power. So I have 4 plus 2 is 6 plus 2 is 8 plus 2 is 10. So I get y to the 10th. Last example number here, I want to express the area of a square using as a monomial. So remember, area of a square is just your length times your width. So we're going to plug in what we know. Well, we know that our length is 4AB, and our width is also 4AB because it's a square. So we know if it didn't tell us, all of my sides would be the same. So now you're just multiplying. So 4 times 4 is going to give me 16. A times A is A squared. B times B is B squared. Area has a label of units squared. So that's the end of the video. If you have any questions, come chat with me. Otherwise, on to the practice.